All right, UFC Fight Night Burns versus Brady predictions and breakdown. So let's kick it off. The first fight on the prelim is Zygmontas Ramaska versus Nathan Fletcher. Now this fight was supposed to be on, I think the last card, or maybe the card before that. I think it was the last card, and it got scrapped. So this is actually on my last prediction video. But yeah, I'm going Nathan Fletcher. I kind of went back and forth originally, and I was kind of thinking Ramaska was a pretty good underdog at the time. I think he's still the underdog. It's close, though. Ramaska, he's mostly a striker. He's a tall, rangy guy at 145. Has some power in his hands. Throws some kicks. He's not the greatest kicker, but he does kind of throw them in volume. There's not really like a whole lot of power. The power is really in his hands and just like these awkward angles he throws these punches at. But he is pretty easily taken down. I was watching some footage, and guys were able to take him down pretty easily. You know, he did sub a few of them, but that was mostly because they were just gassed, and then somebody shot a shitty double leg and got guillotined. And I didn't really like seeing that, especially, you know, coming into the UFC at UFC level, these guys are going to be pretty good grapplers. And Nathan Fletcher is a grappler. He can strike. You know, he's got decent boxing. He has a nice jab. He moves around, but he's not like the most confident and comfortable on the feet. I do feel Ramaska will be a little bit better on the feet. Maybe not in terms of skill, but just in terms of him being more comfortable and also that power in the range he has at 145. But I think Nathan Fletcher can take him down. I think he will take him down, and he'll probably get a decision. I could see a submission maybe from Nathan Fletcher, but I'm going to go decision. Yeah, Nathan Fletcher by decision. So the next fight, moving up, as we scroll up, is Andre Petroski versus Dylan Budka. Budka, I believe is how you pronounce his name. Let's see. Let's scroll down here. So yeah, this is Budka's second fight in the UFC. His first fight, he lost to Cesar Almeida. He got knocked out. Dylan Budka, though, is a wrestler. He has some wrestling accolades, and he's got a background. But from what I saw in that debut, and I get it, it was his debut, and he could have, had some jitters. Hold on, let me get a sip of water. He could have had some jitters, and he was also fighting a really good kickboxer. So he was probably nervous as fuck that if he couldn't take him down, that, oh my God, he probably had a little bit of panic on the feet. And, he couldn't really take, I think he took Almeida down once or twice, but he could not hold him down. And that's not good. I don't like seeing that. Even if you have that wrestling background and those accolades, even if you can take a guy down once or twice, if you can't keep him down and they just get back up, you're basically just wearing yourself out by taking him down. And then they're just going to get up and then keep marching you down, throwing strikes. And I feel like that's going to happen in this fight. Budka might get a couple of takedowns early, but I just don't see him getting anything out of it. I think Petroski's pretty much better everywhere, besides maybe, just blast doubles and singles. Like if this was a straight wrestling match, Budka would win, but Petroski's a pretty good grappler himself, pretty good wrestler himself, and I think he is the better overall grappler in terms of his jiu-jitsu and when the fight hits the ground. I think he is a much better grappler than Dylan Budka. I'm actually kind of surprised the odds are as close as they are. I think Petroski's, quite a bit better than Dylan Budka, and Petroski's, he's had some tough fights, but I think he's a better striker, and I think he's a better overall grappler pretty significantly. The only area you could really say Budka's better than Petroski is just straight up maybe blast doubles, and maybe he's more explosive and athletic in terms of that initial shot. But other than that, I just don't see anywhere Dylan Budka can win this fight. I'm going to go Petroski by, I'm going to go submission. I think he's going to submit him. I think he'll probably wear him out, probably crack him up on the feet. Budka's going to take some sloppy shots, get stuffed, maybe get a takedown or two, and then Petroski will just get back up. And eventually Budka's going to take a bad shot and probably end up getting guillotined, or I think he'll probably just turtle up and Petroski will get on top and either get a rear naked choke or possibly an arm triangle from like mount. So yeah, I'm going to go Petroski in this one. I think he's going to get the finish. Yeah, Petroski. So moving on up the card is Jacqueline Amarin and Vanessa Dumopoulos. Jacqueline is a pretty big favorite in this fight. I think he's almost a 4-1 favorite. I don't like trusting those odds ever in a women's MMA fight. 4-1 favorites and 5-1 favorites, even like 3-1 favorites. Just because a lot of these fights go to decisions and they end up being pretty close. And you never know what these judges are going to think or what they're going to value. You know, sometimes judges, they value strikes way more than they should. And what I mean by that is you'll see like maybe Jacqueline Amarin clinches her and holds her up against the fence for, I don't know, let's say 3 minutes and 50 seconds of the round. So pretty much almost the whole round besides like a minute. And let's say Vanessa in that last minute lands a couple of shots, maybe a body kick, couple of leg kicks, maybe a left hook. Nothing crazy. Some of those judges are going to give that round to Vanessa in this scenario just because of those few strikes that she lands versus, Jacqueline's control time. And this is a theoretical, situation I'm going over. I'm just saying, basically, you don't know what the hell the judges are going to value, and they could end up being real close decisions. Jacqueline Amarin is a better grappler, much better grappler, I think, in terms of her jiu-jitsu, her positioning, and things like that. But Vanessa, her striking, I feel like it might be a little bit better. Maybe not in terms of technique so much, but in terms of just her willingness to throw and her willingness to engage and her toughness and the pace she keeps. And she's been able to win some decisions because of that. Quite a few close ones. Jacqueline, I think, is the more talented fighter here. Vanessa, I think, is the more, how do I word it? She's the better competitor, if that makes sense. She knows kind of how to win over, the judges in some of these close fights, just based off the optics of it and things like that. But I am going to go Jacqueline Amarin. I feel like that talent will shine through. Maybe she'll get the submission in this one, but probably not. I see a decision. Vanessa, though, is not at all a bad underdog, especially at the odds. I think she's, let me double check here, but I think, let's see, Jacqueline Amarin is minus 310. This is on DraftKings. And Vanessa is plus 250. So she's not a crazy underdog, not crazy numbers, but plus 250 I think is decent because, again, this is probably going to go to a decision. If it doesn't go to a decision, it's probably because Amarin will submit her. But yeah, probably goes to a decision. And Vanessa's not a bad underdog, but I'm going to go Amarin. I think Amarin's going to be a little bit better on the ground, and I think that's going to kind of show through at some point in the fight, positionally, control time, things like that. So I'm going to go, I'm going to go Jacqueline Amarin in this one by decision. Let's see, moving up the card, we have. Let me make sure I pronounce this guy's name right because I'm seeing a few different ways they're doing this. I see on the UFC site it's Yiza, but on here it's like one word, Yiza, instead of like Yiza. So yeah, Yiza, however you pronounce his name, versus Gabriel Santos. This one was a tough one for me to pick. Hold on, let me scroll this down a little bit more. Yeah, this one was a tough one for me to pick. Gabriel Santos is real sloppy. He gets hurt pretty easily, but he is tough, and he's one of those guys where even when he's hurt, he's dangerous. Like, he could still hurt you even though he's wobbly as fuck. And like I watched some fight on the regional scene. I think it might have been like an LFA fight, and he got his shit rocked. Gabriel Santos. I mean, like, hurt bad, and like, a lot of refs probably would have stopped that fight, but he recovered, and then by the end of the round, he had the other guy hurt, and then he ended up head kicking him in the second round and fucking knocking him out like early. And I was like, holy shit. And also his two losses, Gabriel Santos, were to David Onama and then to Lerone Murphy. Lerone Murphy by split decision, which in hindsight is actually, not that bad of a loss. David Onama also not that bad of a loss either. He got KO'd in that one, and now he is fighting Yiza. And before that, he was 9-0 in MMA, and he was a prospect. Still is a prospect, but yeah, he's fighting Yiza. I believe Yiza is the No. Let me check. No. Santos is the favorite. He's minus 265. And Yiza's plus 215. I was looking at these fights, and at first I was like, Santos 2-fight losing streak. Yiza, he's fought before against higher level competition, not like high level, but UFC level competition, and he's lost. Hasn't looked so great. And sometimes when you look at an underdog at plus 215, you kind of go, maybe on this second run, he's finally had a breakthrough, and he's gonna be able to beat, some of these UFC level guys. But then you look at Gabriel Santos, and his two losses, were against pretty damn solid competition. Lerone Murphy, especially, from a technical perspective, very skilled, and to go to a split decision with him, that's a pretty good loss in hindsight for the situation that he is in currently. Looking at Yiza's record, lost to Jinyoung Lee by split decision. He also lost to, this is before the UFC. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that guy's name. My God. Kurwali Myamyatehoti. I don't fucking know. He got knocked out in that fight in 11 seconds into the second round. But yeah, usually, to be honest, with a lot of these Asian and Chinese, Japanese, regional prospects, especially the ones that come through road to UFC, they don't have a very good track record. I'm going to be real. They just don't have a very good track record. They tend not to do as good as people from the U.S. and the U.S. prospects, and even like the European and the South American prospects. They just don't typically do as well. That's just kind of the track record on them. So when I'm looking at Gabriel Santos, he did get KO'd in his last fight, but Yiza's not like some crazy striker or knockout striker. He seems to be more of a grappler. And Gabriel Santos is a pretty good grappler himself. And I'm going to go Gabriel Santos. I think he's going to win this fight. I think he's just probably a bit better. He's probably just a level above Yiza. And I'm going to trust Gabriel Santos, even though 2 losses in a row. Sometimes it's hard to pick these guys because, they come into the UFC 9-0. They're a prospect. They think they're a world beater. Then they lose 2 in a row against pretty good competition. And then they kind of just, sometimes they give it up. They give up on that dream. And you see them in their next fight, against a guy that's hungrier than them, and they end up losing maybe a decision, or sometimes they get finished. And it's hard to pick these kind of matchups, but I'm going to trust Gabriel Santos in this one. I think he's just better, and I think he's going to get it done. I could see maybe a finish. In this one. So moving on up, we got Felipe Dos Santos versus Andre Lima. This was another tough one for me to pick, but I am going to go Lima. At first, I was leaning Dos Santos because he's obviously fought much better competition in the UFC. He fought Manel Kape. He's just fought more in the UFC. let me scroll up a bit. Andre Lima here was the guy that got bit, and then that was the whole DQ thing. He got the tattoo after the fight, kind of went viral a little bit. And then he fought Mitch Raposo and won a split decision, although that was not a split decision. I picked Mitch Raposo in that fight, but he lost that fight. I don't know what the fuck that judge was smoking. Lima won that fight pretty clearly. I'm going Andre Lima on this one. I actually think he's going to be one of these guys that he's going to get better as he fights in the UFC. I think what we're seeing right now is he's a little timid. He's still kind of getting used to the lights and you know, the whole big show spectacle of the UFC. But I think he's actually pretty talented, Lima. And I think he's going to be the sharper striker in this one and the more powerful striker. Dos Santos gets wild and, you know, he does throw volume. But that's the problem, is I think he's just a little too wild. And I think Lima is the sharper, more accurate striker, and I think he's also a pretty good grappler, you know, and I think he can hold his own on the grappling. I don't see Dos Santos really just dominating him on the ground or anything like that, or catching him in some sub. I'm going to go Lima by decision. I think he's going to land the cleaner low kicks. I think he's going to land the cleaner shots and just overall be sharper than Dos Santos, and I think he's going to get it done by decision. I'm going to go Lima. I'm going to go Lima in this one. So moving on up, we have Isaac Dolgarian versus Brendan Marat. Dolgarian minus 1,800, Brendan Marat plus 1,000. Dolgarian, huge favorite. He got absolutely fucking robbed blind in his last fight against C-Rod. I think that was his last fight. Let me double check just to make sure before I give you incorrect information. So yes, C-Rod was Dolgarian's last fight. Yeah, he got fucking robbed blind. Dolgarian in that fight, he won that fight against C-Rod. And I think the odds here are probably a little too wide, but relatively accurate. I think Dolgarian is going to fucking ragdoll Marat and just run through him. There's not much to really go on off this fight or this pick. But the odds, I don't know, man. Unless you're like fucking Khamzat Chimaev fighting fucking Reese McKee or some shit. And I'm saying like now, not like, you know, when it actually fucking happened. I'm saying like right now, if Khamzat were to fight Reese McKee and I saw some odds like minus 2,000 or some shit versus like plus 2,000 or, you know, anything higher, that makes sense to me. But when you have guys that are like 6-1 and 8-2, I don't really like seeing odds this wide ever. I don't care how much better you think somebody is. At 6-1 and 8-2, probably should be 7-0 versus 8-2. I still don't think these odds are you know, accurate. I think they're a little too wide. That being said, I do think Dolgarian's going to fucking destroy him. So, yeah, I'm going to go Isaac Dolgarian by submission. Yeah, I think he's going to submit him. Probably take him down, control him, beat him up a bit, and then end up finding a sub at some point. I'm going to go Dolgarian submission. Although, again, with this level of experience between them, I don't like seeing the odds that wide ever in a fight. So, moving on up, we got Rongzhu versus Chris Padilla. Now, I watched footage on both of these guys, mostly Chris Padilla, honestly. Chris Padilla is... shit, as I drop the mic. Here we go. Let me fix that. There we go. So, Chris Padilla, I was watching footage of him, and I don't know. He's a hard fighter to really get a read on. Sometimes on the feet, he just looks kind of sloppy, not all that great. I watched that fight against Darren Smith Jr., and Darren Smith Jr. He's a tough motherfucker, and he just keeps coming forward throwing. But my God, he is absolutely dog shit on the feet, Darren Smith Jr. And he was tagging up Padilla quite a bit, just moving forward, throwing, recklessly. And I don't like seeing that at 155 at all. I don't like seeing guys just being able to march forward like a zombie and throw slow, looping shots and still land them on you as a lightweight. I don't like seeing that. And that's kind of what was happening in that fight. This was pre-UFC, though. And Chris Padilla, I think he's gotten better since he's gotten to the UFC. He's kind of gotten that confidence boost of being in the UFC. And he is a pretty good grappler. He's good at controlling up against the fence. He's very calm in the grappling scenarios. He doesn't wear himself out too much, and he's also good at getting out of submission attempts. He's a tough guy, and he keeps pushing forward, and he's a good grappler. And I like him as an underdog in this fight, and I am picking Chris Padilla to win this fight. Rong Zhu, I feel like there's just not a whole lot of threats he presents. If I'm being honest, he's on the feet. He looks prettier on the feet in his striking, technically, right? Like his stance, maybe the way he moves, the way he kind of throws his jab or his strikes. Technically, they look prettier than Chris Padilla's, but I don't know if it's as effective, and I don't think he's got the kind of power where he can sit on the outside and just snipe Padilla and then hurt him or anything like that. I don't see anything like that happening. And also his grappling is, he's more of a grappler himself, Rong Zhu, from what I've seen, and I feel like Padilla is the better grappler of the two. I feel like he's the better submission threat. I feel like he has better ground and pound, and I just feel like he's more aggressive with it. And I'm gonna go Chris Padilla. I'm going to go with Chris Brady in this one. I don't know if he's going to get the finish, but I think he's going to get the win, and I think he is the underdog. Let me check. Let me double check here to make sure he is the underdog. Come on, DraftKings. Let me get some water. I'm fucking dying over here. There we go. Chris Padilla. He is. He's plus 200. Holy shit. Wow, that's actually a lot wider than I thought the odds would be. Yeah, so Rong Zhu's minus 245. Padilla's plus 200. That's interesting. Yeah, I'm going Chris Padilla on this one. I don't get those odds, to be honest with you, at all. Yeah, I'm going Chris Padilla as the underdog in this one. I think he's going to win this fight. So let's move on up to the next one. Trevor Peek versus Yanal Ashmu. I'm going Yanal Ashmu in this one. I like Trevor Peek. He's entertaining, but he fucking sucks in terms of his skill set, especially his striking. His grappling's not all that fucking bad. He knows how to pummel. He knows how to defend himself on the ground. But on the feet, he is, from a technical perspective, he is fucking terrible. He's awful. Trevor Peek is absolutely terrible on the feet. He's a tough guy. He's got a chin and he's got some power, and he's not a quitter. So he's not he's not gonna just fucking fold over if he gets hit. And his grappling is actually somewhat decent defensively, and he can pummel. Like I said, he can wrestle a bit. He can scramble. He can defend off some submissions. But Yanal Ashmu is. I'm surprised he's the underdog in this one. Slight underdog, as I'm fucking trying not to die over here. Excuse me. Yeah, I'm going Yanal Ashmu's by decision. I think he's going to pick Trevor Peek apart. I think he's going to outstrike him pretty easily, to be honest with you, and maybe even get the better of the grappling too. He is smaller. He is smaller, I believe. It says they're both 5'9", but I don't fucking know, man. Whenever I see Yanal Ashmu fight, I always think, fuck, man, he could probably be a featherweight. Maybe it's just me, but yeah, I'm going to Yanal Ashmu in this one. I'm shocked he's the underdog, genuinely shocked. I think he should be a favorite for sure. I think he's going to pick Trevor Peek apart pretty easily. I think he's going to outstrike him, use his jab, use his movement, use his kicks in and out, and just be quicker to the target, and then probably the better grappler too. I don't think he's going to really try to grapple Trevor Peek, just because I feel like there's no point to doing it. Trevor Peek isn't going to try to grapple him more than likely, unless he tries to grapple with Trevor Peek. And then sometimes you see that clinch pummel, where he gets kind of, in that dirty boxing, and that would benefit Trevor Peek more, I think, in this fight. If this fight played out that way, I feel like Yanel is just a better striker on the outside, and I think he's going to be able to outmaneuver Trevor Peek, hit him with the jab, in and out, inside low kicks, things like that. I'm going to go Yanub Ashmu by decision. I think he's going to win a pretty easy decision. I think he's going to probably 30-27 Trevor Peek. I don't know why the fuck Trevor Peek is the favorite. Moving on up the card, we have Matt Schnell versus Cody Durden. The fuck are we doing here? Open up graphic. So apparently this does not have a graphic. But yeah, Matt Schnell, plus 400 versus minus 335. That's pretty crazy, actually, right there. Matt Schnell is chinny as fuck, for sure. But skill for skill, honestly, I don't think Cody Durden's much better than Matt Schnell. He's a better wrestler. But in terms of his striking and his submissions and things, submission grappling, I don't think he's that much better, honestly, than Matt Schnell. I am going to go Cody Durden, though. Matt Schnell, I can't trust his chin. He gets folded pretty easily. But skill for skill-wise, this fight is much closer than the odds suggest. But yeah, I kind of get it because of his chin. But yeah, I'm going to go Cody Durden. He'll probably, you know what? I'm going to say decision. I don't know if Cody Durden's got that kind of striking to really, get Matt Schnell out of there like that. Yeah, I'm going to go Cody Durden by decision. I think the wrestling will be the difference. He'll probably just kind of outwork him, get some takedowns, end up winning the fight. So yeah, we're going to move on up here. Steve Garcia versus Kyle Nelson. I'm all over Steve Garcia. This dude's on a fucking roll. And Kyle Nelson, he's kind of rose back from the grave a bit. Most people kind of thought he was just going to kind of be a UFC reject probably. And, he's actually done pretty good recently. But I'm going to go Steve Garcia. He's on a roll. He's knocking everybody the fuck out. And I think he's going to do it again. I think he's going to knock Kyle Nelson the fuck out. I don't know if it's going to be in the first round. I actually think it might be like the third round. Like a late kind of drag him down, type of war. So yeah, I'm going to go Steve Garcia again by knockout. But this, I think, one's going to probably be in the third round. I think it's going to be a bit more of a war. I think Kyle Nelson's really going to try to clinch and try to stall out the fight. And I think he'll have success doing that a little bit. I think he's going to probably get hurt. And then he's going to clinch, kind of, slow down the fight. He'll get hurt, clinch, slow down the fight. But eventually, I think Steve Garcia is going to probably get him out of there. Probably in the third round. I'm going to go Steve Garcia, third round knockout. Actually kind of surprised the odds are as close as they are in this fight, considering the role Steve Garcia is on. He's only like a slight favorite, I think. Let me check. Let me double check here. Yeah, he's only minus 185. Kyle Nelson plus 154. That's actually a bit surprising. I feel like Steve Garcia would be like almost a 3-1 favorite, the way he's just fucking steamrolling everyone. Yeah, I'm going to go Steve Garcia by third round KO in this one. Moving on up. Let's see, to the co-main event. We got Jessica Andrade versus Natalia Silva. I'm going with the underdog in this one. I'm going Jessica Andrade. I feel like she's in a bit of a career resurgence right now. I think she's on the come up again. She had those fights where she did not look good at all, and she was getting rolled over. I think she's in a lawsuit for her ex-coach or some shit for like $2 million or some crazy shit. And she's on a 2-fight winning streak. And I feel like people are kind of writing her off. Natalia Silva is talented, she is skilled, and she is on a roll. But Jessica Andrade, when she is on her game, she is a fucking destroyer. She is. She's a fucking destroyer. She knocks bitches out. She lays them out cold. She fucking picks them up and spikes them on their fucking head. Like, when Jessica Andrade is on her game, she is fucking dangerous. She's dangerous. And I feel like she's on a 2-fight winning streak. She's got whatever her personal issues were. They're finally, in the past now. She's not having to deal with whatever that was. And now she can just finally be like, you know what? One last run in me. I think she's, 33, 34? Let me double check. How old is Jessica Andrade? Jessica Andrade is... Fucking come on. 32. 32. So she's not as old as I thought she was. I'm going Andrade. I'm going Andrade with the underdog here. Probably by decision, but I think she's gonna get it done. I think she's gonna bulldoze Natalia Silver and put her up against the fence, batter her with body shots, go back up to the top, hit her with those hooks up to the head, and then she's probably gonna level change, look for those takedowns, those big slams. I'm gonna go Andrade, man. I'm going Jessica Andrade, and by decision, I think she's gonna win. I think she's going to make another run towards the title here. Let's see. The main event. Gilbert Burns versus Sean Brady. Here we fucking go. This one I actually think is going to be a pretty good fight. This is a very interesting matchup here. Let me get some water for this one. Fuck. My voice is going out. So Sean Brady... I've kind of shit on him throughout his UFC career a bit. Not really, but like in his wins coming up, let me pull up his record here just so I can remember everything properly in the order of how they happened. Come on, Tapology, work with me. So Sean Brady. Let's start off with Sean Brady. So Sean Brady, let's just, get this background out here. He's a grappler. He had a submission grappling record. He actually beat Craig Jones. So he's legit. He's legit when it comes to his grappling and his control. But I just, in his MMA fights in the UFC, I was not that impressed with him. All the way up to the Belal Muhammad fight, I was not that impressed with him. If you look at his wins... he was just kind of laying on guys, mostly just controlling them. And, when he first got to the UFC, he made his UFC debut against Court McGee, won by decision. That's a pretty good win. That's a good win for your UFC debut. Coming in at, I believe he was, 9-0 prior to... Yeah, he was 9-0. For your 10th pro fight to fight Court McGee in the UFC, in your UFC debut and win pretty easily, that's impressive. That's a pretty tough matchup against a guy that's been in the UFC for fucking forever in Court McGee. But in terms of the grand scheme of things, if you look at the top welterweights at the time of his debut would have probably absolutely steamrolled Court McGee. So him 30-27 Court McGee, while it is impressive for a UFC debut fighter in terms of like a championship level fighter, it's not all that impressive, that win. Just to kind of keep that in mind, because we're now starting to think of Sean Brady as like a possible title contender at this point. And then he beat Ismail Nardiev. That's a good win as well. Especially for your second fight in the UFC. He's no longer in the UFC, Ismail, but still, it's a decent win. You got to give him that. And then he got a submission. And then he fought Jake Matthews, and he submitted Jake Matthews. So now he's looking pretty good if you look at his fights here. And then he fights Michael Chiesa. And then he beats Michael Chiesa. But my biggest gripe with Sean Brady in all these fights is that he seems to kind of fatigue late in the fight. Even if you look at the Chiesa fight, in that third round, man, he looked done. He looked gassed, Sean Brady. If that Chiesa fight was a 5-rounder, Chiesa, I think, probably would have ended up submitting Sean Brady or TKOing him with ground and pound, because Sean Brady was fucking gassed. He was done at the end of that fight. Like, there was no way that fight could have went 2 more rounds. and he would have won. There's just no way. And that was my big complaint with Sean Brady is just he is, he's a very good grappler, heavy as fuck when he gets on top, scrambles well, and, he is a submission threat. But if you can survive and you can push a pace, he's going to seem to struggle. And Belal Muhammad, TKO'd him in the first round. That's not, the greatest look in the world. Belal Muhammad is a savage. Savage wrestler, great conditioning, underrated striking, boxing especially, skill-wise, but he's not like a powerful striker. So getting starched by him in the first round is not a good look. He did rebound against Gastelum. Now, I did pick Gastelum in that fight. I thought Gastelum was going to absolutely annihilate him, to be honest with you, and it was not the case. It was the other way around. Sean Brady fucking destroyed him. And that was by far and away Sean Brady's best performance of his whole career was against Gastelum. Because in that fight, his wrestling transitions looked better than they ever have. The way he was just scrambling in that fight, and then also on the feet, he looked a lot more comfortable on the feet than he had in any of his other fights. And honestly, Calvin was, at least on paper, was at least the best striker that he had fought up to that point. Especially power-wise, knockout power, which is usually the thing that if you're a grappler, that's the thing that kind of stresses you out the most and probably fatigues you the most if you're on the feet, is if you're fighting a guy that has one punch KO power, because you're always so, skittish and reactive to everything your opponent's throwing. So it's impressive that was the most comfortable he looked on the feet was against Calvin Gastelum. And he ended up submitting him, and it was a really good performance in that fight from Sean Brady. And Gilbert Burns, older, I think he's like 37, 38. He's coming off that loss to Jack Della Maddalena. Before that, he lost to Belal Muhammad, who's the current champ. He blew his shoulder out in that fight and just was pretty much useless from that point onward. Although in the Della Maddalena fight, he was going to win that fight until he got kneed in like the last minute and got put out. But he was winning that fight. And look, Jack Della Maddalena is a way better striker than Sean Brady. He's just a way better striker. He has more power. He's more dynamic, and he takes more risks. That being said, he's not as good of a grappler as Sean Brady. So this makes this matchup really interesting because the first question is how is Sean Brady's gas tank gonna hold up in a 5-rounder if it goes to that point? What happens if Sean Brady does win the first 2 rounds, and then he starts to slow down, and Gilbert starts to turn it up a bit in that third round? Let's say Gilbert wins the 3rd round, so now Sean Brady's up 2 rounds to 1 heading into the 4th and 5th rounds, right? If Sean Brady is just done at that point, basically, gas tank wise, Gilbert Burns is probably going to end up getting a finish in the 4th or 5th rounds. And that's what concerns me in this. So that's the first question, is how is Sean Brady's gas tank going to hold up in this 5-rounder? The second question is, how is Gilbert Burns at his age? When is he going to have that slowdown, that fall off the hill moment? That's kind of the other question here is, after that Jack Della Maddalena loss, how is he going to rebound from that? Sean Brady, stylistically, is actually, I think, a good matchup for him, especially coming off a knockout loss, because Sean Brady's not a knockout, fighter. He's not a knockout striker. He's not a striker. He could basically strike enough to get to his grappling. And that's what makes this matchup interesting, is because Gilbert is a better striker. He's got legit KO power. He's going to be the more comfortable guy on the feet. But I don't know, man. I feel like Sean Brady's going to be the better wrestler. I feel like he's probably going to be the better guy in terms of top control, which is crazy to say given Gilbert Burns, his jiu-jitsu background and everything. Burns, I feel like, will probably be a little more dangerous off his back in terms of a submission threat, like maybe throwing up an arm bar, catching something like that, a sweep. But I feel like Brady's going to be the heavier guy on top if he gets on top. I feel like he's going to really try to control and win the round, whereas Burns is going to try to look for the ground and pound in the submission a little bit more. But in doing so, he might give up position and let Brady get back up to his feet, which could be an issue. I don't know, man. I'm favoring Gilbert Burns in this fight. I just feel like he's got more ways to win. And basically, this fight, you're basically trusting. If you're picking Gilbert Burns, you're trusting that he's still good enough at 38-37 that he can maintain a good performance the way he did against Hamzat or even against Della Maddalena. If he could perform at that level against Brady, I think he's going to win. But if he's not, if he's a little slower, if he's a little older, if he's just not quite the same guy, Sean Brady's probably going to end up winning a decision. He's probably going to get some top control time and do enough to get the win. But I don't think so, man. I think Gilbert Burns is still, I think he's still pretty good. I think he's still explosive. I think he's still athletic. And I think he's going to win this fight. I think he's going to lose early. He's going to lose the first couple of rounds, probably get controlled up against the fence, probably gets taken down, controlled a bit. But then as that fight wears on, I think he's going to turn it up a little bit. And I think he might be able to get a decision over 5 rounds or maybe even a late finish. But I'm going to go Gilbert Burns on this one. And, so that's the UFC Burns versus Brady breakdown. As my lips are dry as fuck and I'm dehydrated and I need some water and I can hardly speak. Yeah, so I think I have quite a few underdogs. Not a whole lot, but I think Burns is an underdog. I have Yanal, Ashmu, and then I have Chris Padilla. Those are all underdogs. But, so these are my predictions and breakdowns for Burns Brady. I don't know if I'm going to do a long shot parlay. I don't know. Maybe we'll see. I will do like a post-video reaction of the card. But the long shot parlays, I don't know. They're pretty much impossible. Well, they're not impossible to hit, but they're so low. There's such a low chance you're going to hit a 12-pick parlay that, I don't know. I feel like there's no point of even really uploading that. But maybe I'll post it in like a comment or something or the description. But anyways, I will see you guys next time. Y'all have a good one. Take care.